Welcome to the Key Wellbeing podcast and our new series, Lunchtime Listens, where it's all about real clients, real employee wellbeing challenges, and of course, real expert advice. Let's get started. This week, the topic is the impact of the ever-growing digital divide. If the last few years have taught us anything, it's that the shift to remote working and learning is here to stay. For some, that might be music to their ears. But what about those that don't have access to laptops, smartphones, or high-speed internet that's actually reliable? It's fair to say there's an ever-growing digital divide that's impacting families, students, and employees, and it can have a significant impact on our well-being. Today, we're joined by a returning guest, Sarah Heward. This time, Sarah's back to delve into the world of digital equality. Alongside her role as mum, Sarah is the Chief Operating Officer of Tech Equal, the Teesside-based charity that's on a mission to improve futures for young people in the region with the power of technology. So welcome back, Sarah. It's a pleasure to have you here again.
Thank you so much for having me back. Yeah.
Of course. All right, let's dive in then. So we hate to say it, but has, in a way, COVID helped to expose what's really going on when it comes to tech equality in the Northeast?
Yeah, to be honest, absolutely. And I do think that without COVID, we probably wouldn't be where we are in terms of along with this journey with shining a light on what's actually going on within schools. So just to give you a bit of background, the charity was founded by Dean Benson, who had basically donated quite a bit of money to various digital poverty funds, but really wanted to understand, what is digital poverty, what's going on in the area. And then I suppose through an evolutionary process of speaking to various different people, it was like, okay, well, can we do something that prevents digital poverty? So again, yes.
I have a question, just for people listening. Can we start off, and maybe this is where I should have started with you. What is digital poverty? What is digital inequality?
So for me, digital poverty is not just access, like lack of access to devices, but it's also lack of access to a set of digital skills. So it's people that are marginalised or excluded from the digital world. So as we know it, there's a lot of jobs that are becoming digital. There's careers that are now completely digitalised. Most businesses now, if we think about it in a technical perspective, would have to refer to themselves as a digital business because some system, process, or something that they are doing, whether it's marketing, is now digitalised. So when we talk about digital poverty, we're talking about people that are literally excluded from this digital world and from digital life.
Right. Okay. Good. I just wanted to call that out there just in case.
No,
it's one of those terms. Yeah, one of those terms that comes up, and I just think it's good to sort of put some definitions around that. So, with some of the work that you're doing, then, which is awesome with Tech Equal, loving seeing everything that's coming out of that. What kind of impact are you seeing this have across the Northeast, and particularly our younger generations?
So quite simply, just taking a statistic. So the Tees region makes up 36% of UK child poverty. So with some of the centralised areas of Middlesbrough sitting within the top 4% throughout the UK. As a UK national statistic, that is just disgusting. And it's like, how do we solve that problem? Well, one thing we do know is that by around 2030, 9 out of 10 jobs will require digital skills. So quite simply, if we're talking about digital poverty in Teesside and we know they don't have access to equipment or access to education that is going to give them those digital skills, where it basically can see them in this cycle of deprivation that they cannot get out of. So how do we solve that problem? Well, we need to work on getting them into jobs, so breaking that cycle. So for me, the impact we see that we can have is by getting in there, almost building a pathway through education into Tees jobs. We all know that the tech and creative digital scene in Teesside is absolutely booming, but there seems to be this huge disconnect between this wonderful success over here and actually the education piece over here. So what we need to do is build a pathway, connect the dots, if you like, so that we can get these kids out of poverty and into jobs and really break that cycle.
Have you got any specific case studies or people without naming names, just to sort of bring this to life and to sort of drive home as well, just kind of what's happening that you've seen out there?
So we have now a lot of talk around the neurodiverse agenda. How do we get people that are neurodiverse, suffering from autism? And autism is a huge scale. So we've got people who are non-verbal, people we've got suffering dyslexia and different different disorders. How do we get those people an equal shot at getting the same tech jobs as everyone else. So just to give you an example, we are currently making a donation to part of the Pennyman Primary School that's an SEN like support facility. They have a couple of classes. There are kids in there that are non-verbal. Now, spending some time, and this is like a working example. Andrew Stockdale, who's one of our partners, spends quite a bit of time at Pennyman. They're currently trying to put into place a one-to-one program which we're supporting, and he worked with this little girl for about 30 minutes, showing her how she could like make a little animation and a movie and all of that time. All of a sudden, she realizes she's able to communicate using this device. So we've gone from someone who can't communicate, is in a classroom full of adults who are desperate to understand her and her understand them and find a way to communicate, to giving her a device and her realizing this is like the opportunity that do you know what I mean? All of a sudden she can connect. She's in the room, she's connecting with these people, she's got that connection that we find so easy because we're verbal. Like, that's amazing to me. That's what this is all about. Like, this is increasing opportunity. Tech is a gateway, but it's a fantastic gateway, and what it opens is a world of, you can then go on to be whoever she wants to be. She's not limited anymore. She's like, can live this unlimited. Yeah, I just think that for me is a really powerful example of what tech can do in education and beyond. All of a sudden, you know, what she thought she was limited to in terms of an education is no longer. We've broken that down, that barrier.
Yeah, wow. And how powerful for you to sort of see that like happen, just the power of
amazing. Honestly, it's amazing.
a mechanism. Yeah, it's wonderful. So let's think about what's happening at the moment then. So, you know, there's a rising cost of living. Some would say the economy is terrible right now. There's like a lot of stress around just being able to afford food and kind of like, you know, make it through the week. So how is digital exclusion making this whole situation worse?
I think for me, it's this, again, think about this, it's the feeling of that there's just no way out. How, if you are somebody who has limited skills, but needs more money, how are you expected to do that? How are you expected to get there? And like you said, we're in a situation where actually we're relying heavily on bigger people at force, like the government, to make these decisions that bring the cost of living down. But until that happens, what can they do? So for you or I, we might have an iPhone, so we can download apps, we can sell our clothes, we can, you know, there are apps now where you can get food that's going to go off in a couple of days that someone doesn't want. There's all of that kind of stuff. But if you don't have access to that resource, you can't access any of that. You can't make quick cash by selling your clothes or unwanted items around your house. You can't do any of that. So when we're thinking about what impact it has, not only does it like impact in the short term, but in the long term, these people can't upskill themselves, they can't get better jobs, they can't get access to work in the same way that we can. They're reliant on going down to job centres. And again, that's if they've got the funds to be able to travel to a job centre, if it's not in walking distance. It's just, there is such a big impact that I don't think in one podcast we can particularly unpack. But again, I just think it highlights how imperative it is that we do something and take action against what is currently going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really good that you're there to shine a spotlight on this. I think that it's, you know, for some people, perhaps really easy to think, oh, we've all got tech now. It's everything's digital, everything's online now. But yeah, what about the people who don't have access to that? Or, you know, or even like to get, you know, digital like shopping to get things delivered, or, you know, when all the shops were closed.
And honestly, so with the work that I'm doing with Tech Equal, I'm part of a few different like skills programs looking at increasing skills and career opportunities, and basically eye-opening to lighthousing what careers are available. And I hear the sweeping statement all the time, you're the digital era, you guys all have digital skills. And I almost like sit in the seat, you like cringe, because you think, having done the research and like looked at various different statistics over the last 10 months about what is actually going on in Teesside, that's just not true. And for a lot of these kids, they then like retreat into their shells because they're thinking, yeah, we're expected to have digital skills, we're expected to have access to digital equipment, we're expected that we have Wi-Fi at home, but the reality is that most of them don't.
What are some of the key barriers then that are, you know, stopping us from bridging that gap and doing something about it?
So the biggest barrier that we've seen, and again, just because we're working mainly on the education piece, so we're working with primary schools, is funding. So funding is a huge reason that the access to tech is so disparate. And again, funding is determined by the government. It's not like the schools determine their own funding. So that's a huge barrier, and it is something that we are looking to. That's why Tech Equal was founded. It was originally, let's give every child in Middlesbrough an iPad. I think the way that the idea and charity has evolved now is that there's a huge piece around tech equity, and actually what that is in terms of illuminating digital careers. Professions are fantastic, but if 9 out of 10 jobs are going to be digital and require digital skills, we need to lighthouse those digital careers and the career paths and the businesses thriving in Teesside that are doing amazing things in that space, the business leaders that, we could all feel aspirational towards, who are also killing it in that space. That's a much bigger piece now for me with Tech Equal than just getting devices, because as we've said, like, the device is almost a gateway. So the accessibility to tech equipment will come, I think, when we lighthouse how big of an issue it is that we have, really amazing scaling small businesses, tech startups in Teesside that don't have a talent pool. There's no developers. If that's what you need, what we're talking about is investing, for a long-term return on investment. We're talking about if you're a scaling Teesside business that wants to be, a medium to a large corporation in 10 years' time, we're talking about investing in the kids in school now, because that will be your future talent pool. Why don't we want to retain Tees talent? And I think for me, it's connecting those dots. That's the biggest barrier. We know the industry and the tech scene, and there's so much amazing stuff going on in Teesside in that space. But what we have over here is like a failure almost in education, and we need to connect the dots to the two so that they see how important it is to give back almost and invest, pay it forward into education, because they're fueling their own talent pool for the future, for future scale, for future growth.
Absolutely. If I was to ask you, this is putting you on the spot, what are the top 3 things that you're trying to achieve with Tech Equal? For people who have just heard about it, maybe they've seen it on social, they're not quite sure, like, you've mentioned, quite a few sort of different projects within it while we've been speaking, but what are the top 3 goals, do you think, of Tech Equal right now?
Absolutely increase the tech equity for children in Teesside, and by that I mean like raise their cultural capital, raise their conscious awareness of what's going on in Teesside, what is going on, who's around, who are these aspirational figures, what do they do, how do they get there? That's a huge piece. In secondary to that, increasing the access to tech equipment in schools, good working tech equipment, top class tech equipment that gives us a top class digital skill set. And thirdly, in doing so, hopefully getting these Tees kids job ready and into tech careers. So like, it's really simple. If we're going to all this effort to lighthouse all these amazing businesses and potential career paths for these kids, we're going to go to the bother of fundraising them and getting them the devices they need to be able to leave school or travel through education with a digital skill set, and always enhancing that skill set. We need to make sure that what that is ultimately doing is fueling these startups with good job ready Tees kids that are also passionate about Teesside, and retain our talent.
That's awesome. Great summary. Absolutely nailed it. I can tell you're so passionate about this. You're definitely the right person to be leading this project. So we're very glad that you're doing that. So for people that are listening, how can businesses contribute? How can people help you? How can they get on board with your mission? What would you ask of them? What's your ask?
So do you know what? There is an ask, and the ask right now for Tech Equal is just, let's get talking about tech equity. Let's get talking about the problem. I think, like you quite rightly said, we're in the midst of an economic crisis, and I'm sure any of the charities or anyone working with the charity listening right now will know we're really in a battle for a pound in terms of getting donations and stuff. But what you can do that costs very little time is start talking about tech inequality, digital inequality, and actually start engaging with pioneering tech charities that can help you sort of give back in time, give back in expertise, illuminate your own business as to what you do and why you're so awesome in the tech space. There are a few campaigns coming up that we will be running in 2023 that are all about raising awareness of this conversation. Because I think, like I've said, unless we connect the dots, we're in a charitable fight that's actually quite difficult to compete. But when you understand what we're talking about is, like I said, breaking the cycle of poverty, getting Tees kids into Tees jobs, fueling our startups, improving our local economy, it then starts to become a conversation where it's like, okay, what else can I do to help? But right now, really, I just need people to start talking, raising awareness, getting in touch with me if there's something they can do. If you want to donate money to help get devices into schools, brilliant. But if you want to donate your time to help me with campaigns, brilliant. If you've got a skill set that you think I need, just get in touch with me. I think there's a multitude of ways that you can support a fledgling charity that doesn't necessarily have to be me knocking on your door, shaking my fingers. I think there's so much more than that, and what I actually need is so much more than that.
Great. And if people want to find out about you and your campaigns that you've got going on, your social media, like how can people get in touch with you and where can people find you?
You can go directly to our website, which is www.techequal.co.uk, or you can just find me on LinkedIn, just Sarah Heward on LinkedIn, and let's have a conversation. I think I say that quite a lot, don't I? It's going to be my hashtag.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for jumping on with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Get yourself across to go find out more about Tech Equal. I know that Key Wellbeing are an avid supporter of what you're doing and will continue to do so. Such important work. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Key Wellbeing podcast. Don't forget, we've got a whole library of free guides, toolkits, resources, and fortnightly lunchtime listens just like this with an epic lineup of guests, all to help you to create a healthy, happy workplace. Find it all on our website, www.keywellbeing.co.uk.